out, and away we go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. I'm here with the boys, Thomas, Drew, missing Ed today, but he'll be back soon. So, gentlemen, we are recapping Baku right now. Fun race, fun track. I don't know if I've spoken to anyone about this race who does not like this track. It's just got a bit of everything, right? You got a castle, you got like a little tight twisty section, you got this long ass straight at the front, which really creates some interesting moments. And I'm just gonna say this is probably one of my favorite races to watch of the year so far. Lots going on top to bottom. The entire grid was mixed up for the start. Like they had lots going for it. But Drew, I want to hear your thoughts really quickly opening up on Baku.
I love Baku. This is one of my favorite places. I don't even know where Azerbaijan is on a map. And you know what? Fault me for that. It is what it is. But the fact that they decided to start racing Formula One here blows my mind. But what I will say is the fact that you can race through castles already sets it apart from the rest. Then Formula One 2024 decided to back that up with a sweet-ass race. And I can get behind that. McLaren showed up in a big way, and Ferrari was looking tight all the way through, which is nice, coming back to back with McLaren and Ferrari looking sharp. We had some mishaps towards the end and at the beginning too. You know what I mean? When Lance Stroll and Yuki got a little touchy in the first four corners, right? So, we've had lots of crazy stuff happen. The race in the middle seemed a little bit here nor there. I kind of, got lost a little bit in the sauce, and there wasn't a ton of action. It was kind of lap by lap and waiting for someone's tires to kind of deg to a point where the race became a little bit more interesting. And we had we had Charles Leclerc following Oscar, virtually the whole race after lap 20. And we were just waiting for someone's tires to fall off. And I was, I think we were both waiting for a safety car to happen, and it never happened. Obviously it did right at the end, but nothing kind of changed up the pace of the race, and there was a lot of people holding onto that hard set of tires from the start to hopefully wait up for a safety car, but it never happened. And I think that it made for an interesting race, but it could have been better. That being said, the result was awesome. Red Bull was nowhere. Mercedes was virtually nowhere. And McLaren and Ferrari duked it out up front, and I thought that it was a good battle between the two of those guys. What do you got on that one, Thomas?
Yeah, so the race was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it as well. Baku historically, I wouldn't say it's my favorite track, not my favorite race, but this one was definitely very interesting to watch. With all the predictions saying safety cars and everything, it was near the end of the race, I'm like, is this going to be the first race where we're not going to get a safety car? But lo and behold, the last couple laps. Overall, yeah, beginning was good. Same as you, Drew. Middle kind of tapered off near the end. It started to pick up where tire strategies started came into play, pit stops and everything. McLaren, amazing. Feel really amazing for Oscar, how he got that win. He kept his head cool. Charles Leclerc, A game for him as well. And at the end, the mishap, that was a little bit WTF moment, like not really sure what happened, what transpired to that, but I guess the pressure got to the boys and they ended up colliding. But overall, good race, enjoyable race. Like you said, Drew, Red Bull was nowhere to be seen. Feel bad for Checo as well, because he was doing fairly well up until the end. And we'll see what the next one brings.
I like how you both just completely decimated my intro. I think two of the points I made in the intro was, one, that it was one of my favorite races of the year. Drew absolutely X that out. And then I said Azerbaijan and Baku is a track that I feel like everyone loves. And here's Thomas saying not his favorite track. So everyone can just ignore half of what I said in the intro. My take on the race is a couple of things. So I actually thought it was really entertaining. Even that middle part when, Leclerc was chasing down Oscar. I think the fact that he was keeping within a second of McLaren for the majority of the laps. Like there were a couple where he fell back and was maybe cooling off, but he was there the entire time. And I thought that was a really compelling part of the race, that, you know, he was just like kind of biding his time, waiting for his chance, never got it, but he was there the entire time. And even when Checo started to come in P3 and you had those top three cars running lap after lap after lap, you know, within a second and a half or 2 seconds of each other, that's not something that we see very often in Formula One races. So I really enjoyed that part of it. I do want to just give a special mention in honor of our resident Oracle Ed, who's not here right now. I do want to shout out Drew for his prediction last week that 3 different people will be on the podium. Like, you nailed that one. And I also want to give myself a shout out because I predicted that it was going to be Leclerc, Hamilton, Piastri. And like, this is as close as I've gotten all year.
I celebrate small victories.
Small victories. All right. So I didn't get the first place right. I didn't get the second place right. I didn't get the third place right. But I got 2 of the 3 on the podium right. And the third team was also correct. So I'm going to give it our.
You're going to what?
I'm going to take that as a massive, massive win. You know, we talk a lot about Piastri, right? And there was a lot of controversy between him and Norris and the team and how they handled those 2 drivers. That was not an issue this week. Norris shit in the bed in qualifying. What happened to Lando this week? Is this an example of, you know, not being able to perform under pressure? Is there something else going on there, or is it just bad lap, bad luck, bad timing?
You know, with Baku and the way that these street courses go, especially on quali day, that, you know, it's important to put that banker lap in. And, you know, as we saw the track kind of come to and rubber in a little bit, you know, we noticed that the lap times were improving immensely. And I don't know whether it was team orders or a combination of him seeing the yellow or a double yellow flag in that final sector, and he kind of let the foot off the gas. You know, I saw him slide over that curb in 15 or 16. And I don't know whether or not that played into it. It didn't look like it was enough because those guys have been doing that all weekend up until that point. And I just don't know if it was a momentary lapse in judgment from Lando seeing a yellow, double yellow, whether he thought that that the session was going to get red flagged, or whether or not it was bad team calls because he got something on the radio saying, hey, Lando, you got to slow this down because of X, Y, and Z. Regardless of the situation, they got themselves into a dilly of a pickle. Has that happened before? 100%. Mercedes has done it a couple times this year where they just made some bad calls, didn't get over the line in time, whatever the situation was. These things happen. That being said, I think Lando did a fantastic job climbing up that grid. I think that Oscar Piastri without Lando Norris at the front of the grid showed that he is the coolest cucumber in that paddock. That guy was not shaken at all. He waited until the right moment to pass Charles, and he held on to that the entire time. So comparing Lando to Oscar, Lando, he's not looking up to it. Whenever things get tight and a little bit pressure on him, he cracks. And I think this, you know, the misstep in the qualies was whatever. But I think the more and more that this stuff happens, the more you see Oscar rise to the occasion and the more you see Lando fall to wherever his natural abilities take him. Do I think that Lando Norris is a future champion? I'm in question right now, but I do think Oscar is.
Did you think he was a future champion 6 months ago?
Yes.
Okay. Thomas?
So, yeah, as Drew said, with in regards to Lando and Piastri situation, I was just going to add that Lando has been, at McLaren for 4 or 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. It took him that time to, you know, get 2 victories, I think. Piastri here, second or third year McLaren, 1 season, 2 victories. So already like kind of outdone Lando in that sense. He's a newer driver as well with less experience. You know, very, very does well under pressure, keeps his head cool. And meanwhile, you could see Lando just cracks under pressure. And, you know, whether that's team orders or whether that's his teammate, is just, he kind of gives off a little bit Max Verstappen vibes, you know. just when things aren't going his way, he starts to lose it and crack. And this was one of the races. Now, having also said that, he did a phenomenal job with what he qualified and how he moved up the grid. But I agree with Drew. For the time being, you know, I saw him as a champion. Do I see him as a champion right now? No. Piastri just outperforms him so far in maturity and, you know, how he keeps his cool, his drive. Just seems like a better overall driver, and you know, basically that number one that the team needs instead of Lando.
I mean, in fairness to Lando, he came into a team that was not as ready to succeed as Piastri did. You know, we talked about this last week, right? You know, he put in his time, he put in his hours in that seat in a car that was not competitive, right? And last year, perhaps they weren't as competitive in the first half, and they started to come along, and then the second half. So I think Oscar's had the benefit of coming into a team that's much more competitive than Lando did. So I want to give him that credit. The other thing I want to point out is that I think this is, you know, so it's Oscar's second win, as we mentioned, but I feel like this is the first one that counts, right? We talked about it when he got his first win, which came by way of Lando essentially giving up, you know, the first place position in, where was it, Hungary, I believe. And it didn't feel like a race or a scenario deserving of your first win, right? I don't think anyone was particularly celebratory. It didn't seem like a particularly a moment of elation for Oscar or the team, and I feel like this one really gave him an opportunity to win the way he knows he can win, and really soak it all in as not only an impressive win for anyone on the track, but as it being your second win and maybe the first one that you really feel good about. I thought that was really a great thing for him, and we'll see what happens. You know, maybe McLaren goes into it saying now they have, you know, a 1 and 2 driver, and they're there to support Lando, and Lando's got to earn that now, because, you know, Oscar is behind a little bit, but he's not that far behind, given how many races are left and given, you know, the trends in performance. Do you guys think that heading into the final few races of the season that Lando is still the quote unquote number one driver there?
100%. Can we also talk that, like, you know, as much as whatever we just said about Lando, he started 17th on the grid, was out in Q1. He finished 4th. That's impressive. Like, that's wildly impressive. And I know he has the most dominant car on the grid, but like, he still did pretty well for himself getting through that grid, like just from the back of the pack. Like, that's impressive. Do I think that Lando Norris is going to be the number one driver at McLaren? I think so. I hope so. I hope he's earned it. And, you know, I was listening to Will Buxton on a podcast, and he was talking about, you know, McLaren taking the team by the balls and just saying, like, guys, Lando is number one. He has a mathematical shot at winning the Drivers' Championship this year. Oscar, I know you're a fantastic driver, but this kid's put in his time. You will get your shot. He's number one right now, and we need to play and think like that. And I don't know what those contracts look like. We've discussed that already. But ultimately, like, if you want to win, you have to think like that. I think McLaren has a good shot at winning the Constructors' Championship. They're on top now for the first time since, 2011 or some shit like that. That's a long-ass time, right? And so I think there's an opportunity for McLaren to make a splash and come out of this year with a Constructors' title. And if they played it smarter, they would have a driver's title too. And that's unfortunate, but I think that, you know, this could be Lando's shot. I don't know what next year is going to look like, but like, there was a good chance that he had his shot this year, and I hope they don't squander it on him.
So as someone, I believe Will Buxton said this as well, you're only good as your last race. So do I think Lando's the number one guy at McLaren right now? I have my doubts. Was he? Yes, he was. With Piastri coming in and performing really strongly the way he's performing right now, I think I think the tide is turning towards Piastri's favor. Um, what you said, Drew, he did an amazing job finishing fourth, but again, Piastri held on to first for the whole hold up race, and he ended up winning, taking the race win. So I think that plays also a significant role. There's not much else to say beside that. I think the tide is turning, and I don't see Lando being as number one driver. I think the McLaren themselves are kind of questioning that right now. In regards to the championship, yeah, I think Lando has a good chance of taking it this year, or the construction taking it this year if they play it smart. But yeah, I think Piastri is gonna be the number one driver, and hopefully, maybe if he performs the way he's performing, he's gonna, essentially get that before the end of the season, in my opinion.
So just looking at the standings right now, we have Max up front with 313. Lando is in second with 254. So I think he is 59 points behind. And then you have Charles, and then you have Oscar, who is only 32 points behind Lando. So there's not a lot that's separating them right now. And I think Lando has to show up in Singapore. Lando has to show up. McLaren has to show up, because if they want a chance of winning a drivers' championship, races are running out, and they have to really, really show up. Even if Max and Red Bull doesn't dominate, right? They don't have to dominate at this point. They just kind of have to be there in the top 10 to kind of really maintain a bit of a lead. So we'll see what happens. How many races are left? We have 7 races left.
6.
Something like that. 6. I'd love to get some predictions, both on the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship from you guys. Drivers' Championship, who do you have?
I think that ship's already sailed. I think Max Verstappen has too big of a chokehold on this, that even if he ends up, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th for the rest of the season, I think between Lando, Charles, Oscar, Carlos, Lewis, George, and Checo, that they're going to split those wins up too much in order to get him. I just think that they're too far away at that point. What I do want to talk about is the Constructors' Championship. So McLaren's about 20 some odd points, 20 points ahead of Red Bull. But if you look down the Constructors' Championship here, we got Haas in 7th place with 29 points, Williams with 16, Alpine with 13, and then Kick Sauber with 0. So I'd really like to see Haas outperform the V-Carb team. They're only 5 points back, and I think that would just be absolutely epic to have the least funded team in Formula One ahead of a team that has money and lots of it, and arguably should be better drivers. I think that next year, with a couple of these driver switches that are going to happen, I think that Haas, I'm really excited to see Ollie Behrman. That guy's been an absolute gem, getting into 2 different cars and scoring points in 2 different races for 2 different teams this year. That came up, and that was absolutely unbelievable, and kudos to him. And Franco Colapinto at the same time. Franco was an absolute legend during that race. He been in FP1, but, so did Charles. So, whatever. It is what it is. In terms of who I have for the Constructors' Championship, yeah, sum that up. I think Red Bull's got that kind of in the bag now. I think that they're just going to squander that away.
So just looking at it right now, McLaren is ahead by 20 points. Judging by what we got last year and what's going on this year, I still do believe as well that Red Bull is going to get the constructors. I think they're really going to pull their weight the last 6-7 races remaining, and they're gonna be first. I have a strong feeling in regards to that. For the drivers, I'm gonna say the same thing. I'm gonna say Max is gonna take this as well as I want Lando or Oscar or Charles to take it. I think Max knows that this is slipping from him, and so does Checo, and I think they're gonna put both of their hardest, darnest efforts to, get on the podium, to finish as high as possible. And, hopefully Max is going to take another world victory. I don't think Lando or Charles are going to overtake Max in the remaining races. I think there's just too much of a point gap unless something terrible happens to Red Bull. But I see both constructors and drivers, Max and Red Bull, taking first.
So we're looking at, so I think drivers, as you guys have both said, is kind of a foregone conclusion. I think too much space to make up, not enough races, and while Max isn't dominating the way he's been dominating, he's been kind of floating in the top 5 or 6 the last few races, and I think that's enough that he has to do. Constructors, though, I am not as confident. I actually think, here's my prediction for the constructors. I think Red Bull is going to finish 3rd. I think McLaren is going to continue to outpace them, and I think Ferrari is just going to continue to be consistent enough and chip away at those 2 other drivers, and I think they can potentially get 2nd place in the constructors. That's what I'm putting out there.
Okay,
I got Red Bull coming in 3rd.
I would love to see Horner's face when he realizes he's 3rd place in a season where the first half of the season he lost 1 or 2 races. Unbelievable. Yeah. He would absolutely, he'd be so crooked. It'd be a good look. I love
they're 30 points back. That's not a lot.
That's not far. No,
right?
Not far.
That's not far at all. And you got a couple of Checo's being Checo, and all of a sudden Ferrari's right in there.
So excited for Checo to show up at the race that he always murders it at. I was like, yeah, boy, go get it. If you got one podium. Race out of this season, you're guaranteed to slap it. This is it. And then, can we talk about that real quick?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's jump on that.
Checo or Carlos's fault? I'm on the Checo train. I think he shit the bed on that. That guy fully had an opportunity. He saw Carlos come. Where do you expect Carlos to go? Did they both kind of swerve into each other? Did it all happen at 200 kilometers an hour? Probably. They're in F1 cars, so it's probably happening real fast. But ultimately,
pretty fast.
If I had to pick blame, Checo is on that one. That guy could have conceded the spot and placed just fine ahead of Max and got some points for Red Bull and finally done his fucking job.
I think, honestly, I think they're both a little bit to blame. Probably more a little bit on the Checo side, because I think from what the commentators said, Sainz moved a little bit to the left, Checo moved a little bit to the right. That's where the crash happened. But yeah, I think Checo had a faster car than Sainz. I think he miscalculated. He did not expect Sainz to kind of move over. Obviously, pressure was there for Checo to perform, to score points, to get on the podium. And I think it got to him, and just stupid mistakes happened. So I'd say sharing the blame, but with a little bit more blame on Checo's side.
You know what? I think at first, you see it, and you see kind of Carlos, drift across, and it was nothing erratic. It was anything like that. He just was kind of drifting across, kind of getting set up for the next corner. He was past him. And that's also an important point, right? He was well past him. He was drifting over, and the first time I thought, oh, God damn it, Carlos, you just ruined everyone's race, and I was blaming him. And then they showed the heli view, and it showed how much road was available to Checo's left. There was an entire 3/4 of a track to the left of him where he could have easily drifted across with him. Again, it wasn't an erratic move. It was just kind of setting up for the next corner. And he had so much space. And he was behind. And he saw him coming. And he was just, I don't know if he just had tunnel vision. And he was just so zoned in on Charles ahead. I don't know. But seeing the replays and seeing how much track he had, I got to put it on Checo. And you know what? The fact that it's Checo, he automatically bears some of that blame. There's a bias.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's just Checo being Checo, unfortunately. Right?
Now, also, I did notice on some Instagram post somewhere, they were talking about Carlos's heads up sports brain. And he was like, you know what? And not only am I going to help protect Charles to get 2nd place, I'm going to take Red Bull out of the race, but I'm also going to allow Williams to score more points so his future team gets some more money in the constructor standings.
I think that's giving him way too much credit.
I don't
No
know.
way.
He is that
He's a
smart.
conspiracy theorist.
He is
All
that
right,
smart.
So you're saying he's gonna take himself out of fourth place or third place at that point in order to score Williams another point in the constructors, and he did this all within like a tenth of a second,
Fractions of
a second while going around a corner. Yeah, okay, that's fair.
That's some heads up hockey right there.
And then there was George, just cruising, came into another third place podium.
Man, this guy just absolutely capitalizes on people's misfortunes and cruises right onto the steps of that podium. This time a little bit lower than the first time, but he cruised into a win the last time that happened. Where was that, Hungary?
Was that Hungary? No.
Was Zandvoort?
Where was it? No, it wasn't Zandvoort. Oh, Austria. That's where
Austria.
it was.
Yeah, it was in Austria. Yeah, when Lando and Max gave a little smoochy smooch, and they both took each other out, and he cruised in for the big W. Bless his heart.
Right time, right place. That's it,
man.
You got to be there.
Stay consistent. That's it. You had to be there to win it.
Yeah. But yeah, Checo. Goddamn, man. Just guy needs some help. Next week we got Singapore coming up. Okay, like I was going on saying how everyone loves Baku and it's everyone's favorite race. I'm not going to say shit about this track. I'm going to let you guys talk about it. What do you think about Singapore?
I like Singapore because it's dark, and I like Singapore because it's a street track and it gets a little gritty. Those corners are crazy. It is one of the most difficult tracks for me to play on Formula 1 2024 or F1 2024 on PlayStation.
It's crazy, man.
It is bananas.
It is crazy.
Yeah. Like when I get to pick the 10 race season, Singapore's out every time. There's no way.
Yeah, I played on like this game called Real Racing on my phone, and it's an impossible track to play on your phone, to race on your phone. It's just like turns everywhere.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's cool, but like in order to race, I don't know. I guess to watch as a spectator, it's fantastic. To drive, no bueno.
Because you're no good at F1 2024.
Correct. I'm no good at the F1.
So you hate the track.
Yeah.
So Singapore is historically not really my favorite track. It's at night. It doesn't seem like there is too much action to me. It kind of seems like a little bit of a boring location. To say it mildly. Yeah. So might get some hate for that. Night tracks are not my favorite track at all to begin with. So I don't know. I'm not really looking forward to this race unless a big safety car happens. There's not much to say, Singapore is kind of a wash for me.
Follow-up question. What makes the location itself boring for you? Like, it's really all you see is a paddock and a track. So I'm just curious what it is about like Singapore
that's
itself.
What I meant. Not really like
you.
The location, but probably more that it's the track layout and that it's at nighttime. That's what maybe makes it a little bit more boring. That's what I like about it.
So, yeah, I don't really know what to say. I have nothing to say about Singapore anymore. I love Singapore. I hear the people are quite nice, very welcoming.
Do you know any Singaporean people?
I heard the food slap.
Yeah, I do know some Singaporean people. I did. I don't know if I know them anymore, but I did.
What happened? Did you eat them?
We just grew apart. Went our separate ways. No. Track is twisted. It's confusing. It should make for, it's probably going to be a relatively boring race because I don't know if there are a lot of passing zones. I think it's a tough track to pass on, so I think qualifying is going to be massive. Maybe we'll see Leclerc up there again since he seems to be a bit of a qualification specialist, even if his car doesn't have the race pace. But you know what? I'm just happy there's a race this weekend because I do not need another off week. After this, we've got an off week until we head over to Austin, I believe it is. So I'm just going to enjoy having Formula One on this week. Before we move on, I want to get your predictions for this shitty track and this shitty race.
Yeah,
Thomas,
you know what? I would love to start us off. I'm going to say Max is going to be first. I'm going to say Lando's going to be second. And Carlos Sainz is going to be third. Why? Just because. Just because.
And that's enough reason. That is enough reason. I'm going to go a little different on this one. I'm going to go back with Oscar on 1. I'm going to go 2 with George Russell. And I'm going to go 3, Carlos Sainz.
All right.
I think Chuckles the Buckles is going to push so hard for that quali lap. He's going to bin it.
Really?
Yep.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going Charles first.
Okay.
I've been really someone's really wrong. I've really been enjoying the way he's been racing the last 5 or 6 races. He had a shitty stint in the middle, like after Monaco. Like those post Monaco blues were a little garbage for him, but I feel like he's started to regain his form. That car started to come back. So I'm going to go Charles. I'm going to go, just for shits and giggles, I'm going to go Checo. I think he's going to have a bit of a redemption race. And just to completely fuck around, let's go with Albon.
Walker, are you on cloud 9 because you're floating?
I don't even know how to.
Yeah,
sure.
What kind of drugs are you taking? You must be high.
I'm just trying to think about the series of events that would need to happen in order for Albon to be. It's crazier stuff's happened, man. We've had Pierre Gasly win races. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know what? Late safety car. Maybe he goes on an alternate pit stop strategy at the beginning and kind of pushes him to the front. Who knows?
Apparently you do.
Who knows?
Ed would know.
Ed would know, but
Ed would know.
Ed's not here, so
Ed is not here.
No, maybe we should. You know what we should do? We should just get like a bowl of fortune cookies, and maybe every episode he's not here, we'll just crack one open and see.
Wow, eh? And I get called the mildly racist one. Wow.
To be fair, he's not even Chinese, though.
Fair, he had that idea, I think, 2 podcasts ago, but we didn't. Yeah.
He did come up with that idea. Yeah.
That's right, he did. Well,
that's how we replaced Ed. We'll just have like a little bowl of fortune cookies.
Bowl of fortune cookies?
Yeah, but we'll get him to write all the things inside the fortune cookie, and we'll just randomly. That's a good idea.
We'll get it like a Ferrari sticker. We'll just stick it on there. It's pretty much Ed.
Pretty much Ed.
Yeah. So anyways, those are my 3. We'll see what happens. I mean, I was the most right this week, so I'm just going to run with that.
And remind us all.
And remind you all several times. Again, Ed's not here, so someone has to be that annoying oracle. So I will fill his shoes. So that's it. We got Singapore coming up. We've gone through our predictions. Anything else, boys, we want to cover before we sign off?
I don't think you've plugged the Discord yet.
Well, that's why I asked if there was anything else we wanted to cover.
Okay, let's take this opportunity. Wherever you guys are listening, we would like to thank you. If you would, we would appreciate it more than anything to like, subscribe, share, comment, do all of those absolutely wonderful things that help this podcast grow. We are on Spotify. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We're on YouTube. Things are popping. We got it moving. And if you want to get involved in the chat, we have a Discord channel. The link will be in the show notes for all of our socials and the Discord. Jump on in the Discord. We got a lot of cool people talking a lot of F1, and it's 24/7 in there, babe.
There we go. Let's go. So this has been Formula One True North, the Canadian Formula One podcast. Thanks again for listening. For Drew, Thomas, and Ed, I'm Walker, and we'll talk to you soon.
It's lights out, and away we go.